Welcome to another episode of the Tobago House of Assembly's Post-Executive Council Media Briefing. This week, the Chief Secretary Kelvin Charles addresses the media.
Effectively, we have done 1 year in office, and I think it is opportune for us to review that year in office. As you're aware, we came to office with a vision that stated we would place emphasis on agriculture, tourism, light manufacturing, and some specialized services, and that we would seek to continue the island's development by focusing on 4 main supporting pillars, as it were: a robust education system, a dynamic health sector, a reformed public service, and a hospitable but productive people. As Chief Secretary, I would have indicated that one of my mantras was business as unusual, conscious as I was that one could not expect different results if one continued operating in the same manner as we were operating in the past. And therefore, part of this strategic direction focused on a realignment and redesignation of some of the various divisions, of which you all are acutely aware. I also indicated that development of the island could not be the responsibility of the Chief Secretary only or the executive only. It had to be a collaborative and cooperative effort. More particularly, I made the point that Tobago was too small a community, and we had limited human resource capacity, and therefore we could not develop the island on the basis of partisan arrangements or partisan politics. And therefore I made a call to persons who were willing, notwithstanding their loyalties, political loyalties, to come to work with us in circumstances where they were prepared to come to the table as professionals. And therefore, one of the other mantras was, together we will continue to build. As you're aware, we would have inherited the reins of leadership in a situation that was economically challenging. And I think, quite frankly, on review, we have done well, because there are a number of achievements that we would have been able to generate, and I shall take the opportunity now to highlight some of those achievements, because if I were to outline all the achievements, we'll be here until 6:30 this afternoon, which means that my good friend would not be able to generate information for the news. So, I think there were some signal achievements, real critical and very important achievements. One such achievement, I'm sure you'll agree, had to do with the conversion of Studley Park Quarry into a special purpose company, the Studley Park Enterprises Limited. We all are aware of the challenges that face that company. As a matter of fact, almost every Monday morning, as we would say in Tobago, there used to be an issue at Studley Park Quarry. That is no longer so. Indeed, we were successful in renegotiating with the union and therefore redeploying 150 workers thereabout from the quarry to other sections in the Division of Infrastructure, Quarries and the Environment. We now have a situation at the quarry where both plants are functional, but one is in operation. That production, I understand, would have gone up on an average of over 200%. The truckers who used to be there lining up from the evening before, they no longer do that. We have exhausted the backlog of orders. We have been stockpiling aggregate in order to facilitate the rehabilitation of the Crown Point runway. I am advised that we have even exported, in quotation marks, aggregate already to Trinidad. What I need to say as well is that part of the arrangement with the union was to provide an incentive allowance of 3 fortnights pay for those workers. Not 1 fortnight, not 2 fortnights, but 3 fortnights pay. And what needs to be said very forcefully and positively is that they were all paid their incentive allowance of 3 fortnights along with their normal pay before Christmas. You see, and I'm not hearing too many things being said or written about that, but of course, as it is said in common parlance, dog bite man, that ain't news. But if man bite dog, that is news. All right? Now, another signal achievement, in my respectful view, is the commencement of construction work in respect of the wastewater facility at Southwest Tobago. Now, for longer than some of you have been on planet Earth, there would have been talk about the establishment of this wastewater facility. It is now in place in the sense that construction has begun. And construction was facilitated by your humble servant brokering an arrangement between the Mount Pleasant Credit Union and WASA. And let me take this opportunity to thank the president and board of Mount Pleasant Credit Union for the level and degree of magnanimity, yes, that they brought to bear on those conversations. Because indeed, we ran the risk of not being able to access an IDB loan to facilitate that construction. And I was able to save the day by bringing both parties together. And indeed, it really took us 2 meetings to broker that arrangement. Now, in respect of our infrastructural arrangements and strengthening, EID CUT and TSTT embarked on a joint venture arrangement to establish the first tier 3 data center to be built in Tobago. And that has tremendous potential for advancing the economic development of the island, because it will provide services such as data storage. It would also allow for persons who want to generate businesses that requires IT support and so on to be able to do just that. And if my memory serves, I think it is approximately $40 million. It is in the $30-something million range. All that designed to move the economy forward. And consistent with that, we would have hosted our first ICT conference in Tobago last year. Now, as you know, one of the first things we did from the standpoint of infrastructure was the commencement of construction of the Lambo River Bridge. For those of us who passed there on a regular basis. You will see the bridge is at the point now where they have laid those slabs and so on and type thing. So it's well on the way. So very shortly we would have a 2-lane bridge, modern bridge that allows for us to traverse with some level of comfort. We did begin construction of the Roxborough Administrative Complex last year. That is ongoing. Occupation of Millsherv building by licensing division, which is significant because, as you are aware, those workers at the licensing office at their previous location used to work for 2.5, 3 hours max, and therefore the average Tobagonian was unable to access licensing services in circumstances that they may have preferred. And very often persons were complaining they had to go back and so on. Now, we dealt with that because in December last year, we transferred workers to that facility, and now it's opened all day except, I understand, for lunch. And of course, I would have, I think on a previous occasion, indicated to you some of the challenges that was really unsavory in respect of our approach to the utilization or the occupation of that building. There would have been completion works in respect of the Canaan, Bonaccord, Mount Grace, and Bethel community centers as part of the infrastructural work. Now, in respect of tourism, we would have set up the Tobago Tourism Agency Limited. As you know, that was one of our campaign promises, because we are saying that we wanted an agency to be concerned with the whole issue of product development and marketing. We have done that. A CEO is in place, and the company has really begun to do its work, so much so that arrangements are in place, I think, for the return of the Scandinavian flight. And I know that they have begun to explore the possibility of generating airlift out of the United States and Canada. And may I remind you that the idea of placing culture with that division was part of the strategic insight and our intent to ensure that culture becomes an integral part of our product offering in that sector. Completion of an island view project that can be accessed via Google Street View, so that, and we did this in collaboration with Virgin Atlantic to ensure that there is marketing of some of the static areas of Tobago as one approach to ensuring that there is some level of increased destination marketing. Now, as you are well aware, there is an interactive museum at Fort King George which we commissioned and which is open now to visitors, especially our cruise ship visitors, when they arrive. And we have gotten to the point where there has been a completion of the Boko Marine Park demarcation initiative. Now, in respect of education, I think you're very familiar, because I would have been championing those over the period. But for the records, I would just highlight some of the major ones for the record. Yes. The design of an appropriate curriculum for our C students, age 14, who had to be placed at secondary schools, but who naturally were not quite ready based on their performance in the C exam. So we did take that into consideration, and we structured a curriculum that would have been more in line with their abilities or competencies displayed at that time. But that program would have been so designed so that if those students demonstrate the capacity to move on and to join the mainstream, they can so do it. We also would have introduced instructional coaches in the primary school for maths and English, or reading particularly, all designed to ensure that our students are provided with the opportunity, as well as the teachers, in respect of best practices, so that the performances of our students can be enhanced. Because I tell you, it clearly is untenable, a situation where one can go to a primary school for 7, 8, and 9 years and leave reading at frustration level. No wonder we have so much challenge at the secondary schools in respect of dropouts and antisocial behaviors in the community. So it is my intention to save this generation whilst I work on the generation that is giving trouble as we speak. During the period under review as well, we would have initiated steps in establishing a teachers' professional center, and that should throw its doors open in the not too distant future, but we have been getting the place ready, the infrastructure and so on. And that again is designed to allow teachers to interact at a digital level, so that they would be exposed to contemporary practices in respect of the teaching learning situation, and to be able to get assistance in lesson planning, curriculum design, all those things that are required to ensure that at the end of the day, the teaching learning environment is enhanced. We would have, in the month of January, launched a training program in collaboration with the Division of Infrastructure, as well as with the Division of Community Development. And that program is a 9-month program, and it's earmarked to provide certification to our tradesmen. So, and it's divided technically into 3 sections. Those who are skilled but do not have the paper qualification will go do a 3 months. And then they would be certified by the National Training Agency. Those who are less skilled would do a 6 months, and those who are novices would do a 9 months. So that, but the idea is that people will now be certified nationally, and therefore they can use that certification as they seek to gain employment, or if they seek to go into business, as the case might be. So we have done that as another of the major achievements coming out of the Division of Education. One of the things we did earlier as well is that we bit the bullet, as they say, and we reassigned teachers to the schools to which they were appointed by the Teaching Service Commission. Because we met a situation where teachers, many of whom were not in the schools to which they were assigned or appointed by the Teaching Service Commission. And that had begun to manifest itself in tremendous problems in respect of seniority, etc. And we moved to treat with that in a very, very decisive way, so that at the end of the day, teachers would not be disadvantaged in respect of promotional opportunities and that kind of thing. Now, let me talk briefly in terms of health. extended hours of operation, Canaan, Scarborough, and the Roxwell centers. As you know, there was a time when Canaan had extended hours, and then those hours were curtailed. So we have treated with that. Now, the Tobago Regional Health Authority is the only regional health authority in the country that conducts screening for sickle cell disease at birth. And we need to make that abundantly clear so that at least there are some things at which we are first. And in this case, it's not only first, but first and only. There has been some level of improvement in respect of the waiting time at both the outpatient as well as the emergency areas of operation. Of course, there remains to be done the necessary continuous improvement in respect of the delivery of certain kinds of services. You may recall that I would have indicated that arising out of the death of Petronella Neptune, based on the information that came to me, that I would have ordered that an investigation be done, because information suggests that we did not exercise, and suggests that we did not exercise best practice in respect of the admission of that patient, who unfortunately died subsequently. Introduction of eye gaze technology to assist persons with disabilities to communicate and interact. And that was one of the things we did as well. So we also were taking care of our less fortunate in terms of our disabled community. And of course, we did set up a couple of committees. One was a research committee, so that we begin to generate the kinds of data required for both informed and scientific decision-making in the health sector. We also did set up as one of those committees a review committee, a facility review committee, to monitor homes for older persons and children. It was some of the highlights in respect of health. In respect of our youth, the establishment of a new youth center at Signal Hill, we did that, and we reopened the Bethel Empowerment Youth Development Center, which was inoperable for a while. Now, the first ever district games designed to increase sport participation among youth during the July-August vacation period was initiated, as well as the hosting of a disability workshop and camp to better facilitate and to generate a greater inclusion for persons living with disabilities. There were, in fact, a number of conversations or discussions held at secondary schools around Tobago, focusing on protecting our girls, and this was done in conjunction or in partnership with the Child Protection Unit of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, Tobago Division. And related to agriculture but involved youth, 60 students were enrolled in youth apprenticeship programs in agriculture for the period being reviewed. And may I say, members of the press, that this is the highest number that has ever been recorded. Now, in respect of community development, you know, we made the point that community development must be the driver of development for Tobago. Because we argued that just as one builds a house block by block by block, so too we feel that Tobago can be developed community by community by community. And therefore we engaged the population early with a series of consultations, after which we moved to decentralize some of our services by placing staff in 13 community centers across Tobago, because, you know, we do have the highest number of community centers per capita in the world. And they were mostly underutilized. So we decided we'd make some use of them, and we did that. In addition to which, we also would have increased the number as well as the range of techno-vocational programs in the communities, so much so that in late last year, I think it was November, 772 persons graduated from those programs across Tobago. Again, the highest number ever, 772. And that is because we were making full use of all our community centers. Yes? That division as well has embarked on a project, a mobile labor unit designed to capture data on persons unemployed, those looking for work, etc., so that it will inform us in respect of our planning. Because you see, normally what you get from Central Statistical Office is basically an aggregate statistic. So, for example, we can talk about an employment rate of about just below 4% generally. But that's an aggregate statistic, meaning it doesn't say to us in Plymouth or Plymouth Golden Lane, for example, what's the level of unemployment? In Roxborough, what's the level of employment? Now, these micro statistics that we are hoping to glean from this kind of initiative will allow us to plan and execute programs at these levels or at these community levels in a way that we couldn't do if we just rely on the global or aggregate statistic. So I just thought that I would put that initiative in context. It's all part of the business as unusual approach. And in terms of housing, we would have distributed some houses. As you know, we do have, we started some work at Corland to ensure that we bring on stream those lots because the infrastructure work was not 100% complete when we took office. So we're treating with that, and we have also started some basic survey work in respect of the lands at Mount Pleasant. Yes? As we seek to position our persons to be able to get access to lands. And you know something I didn't make mention of, but I am now glancing at it here, and I can't leave this out. In respect of our primary schools repair program, because it's something of which I am very proud. For the first time, we had 89 contractors, with the emphasis on small and medium-sized contractors, because what we did was that we broke up the repairs into various packages so as to ensure the widest possible participation by our residents. 89, again, historical, significant. And what was even more significant is that they were paid within 30 days of their invoice submission.
Thank you for staying with us for the Tobago House of Assembly's Post-Executive Council Media Briefing for the week ending February 3rd, 2018.